Welcome to Catholic Mom Mindset, a daily show where you learn to walk closely with the Holy Spirit so you can live the life God is calling you to. I'm your host, Sterling Jaquith. Let us begin. Welcome to episode 1. I am so excited to kick off this show with you. This is going to be a daily show, and my goal for this show is to lead you closer to the Holy Spirit. So the first episode is going to be about hearing God's voice, because we absolutely can hear God's voice. And if no one has ever told you that, and if you haven't had any training, today is the day. I am an atrium teacher, a program called Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. And it's a program that's a Montessori program mixed with stories and lessons from the New Testament. And we teach these lessons and these Montessori tools to kids who are 3 to 6 years old. And so we teach them that everything in the atrium is a work, whether they're coloring or scooping beans from one jar to another or cutting on a line. These are all works, and that God will guide their work, and that all work is a prayer, and that they can hear God through their work. And children just receive this so openly. And usually as adults, it's that we haven't ever been taught how to do this, or we've just forgotten. We've forgotten to approach God with this childlike trust. And so I want to talk about this idea that we are his sheep, that God is the good shepherd. We are his sheep, and the sheep will know him by the sound of his voice. The Bible tells us many times that we can hear God's voice, and that he will give us instruction, and that he will tell us his will. We can know his will. We also know that the Holy Spirit lives inside us, inside our bodies. That's why we have strong intuition. It comes from the Holy Spirit. We can feel things in our body and just kind of know. We have this gut feeling or this nudging. And so my entire goal with this show is to lead you closer to the Holy Spirit. And it just made so much sense that in the first episode, I would talk about hearing his voice. And if you want to learn more about this, you can visit madeforgreatness.co. And I actually have a free short video on how to hear God's voice. And I also include the words that describe how God's voice makes us feel. For example, God's voice never rushes us. If you are trying to make a big decision in your life, God's voice never makes you feel pressure or rushed or scared. God's voice always soothes and comforts us. Even when he's rebuking us, when I am talking to the Lord about sin that I'm struggling with, I feel like he always says things like, I see that you did that. And in our minds, we think that God is going to be angry or disappointed and kind of lecture us. But he usually just says, yes, I know. Just so soft and so loving. And it's so lovely that I have the urge to run into his arms and say, Father, I love you. Please forgive me. That comes from me. The contrition comes from me. He just meets me with love. So even when we're talking to him about something that we feel bad for, the contrition feels good when we're doing it with the Lord. And the same thing about when the Lord asks you to do something scary. You know, when God asked Joseph to pack up Mary and take her to Egypt, that didn't make any sense. But his voice was soothing. It was calming. Even in a dream, Joseph would have woken up with conviction. Conviction is such a wonderful feeling because it allows us to do things that are outside our comfort zone, but we are willing to do it. So when we hear God's voice and we have clarity about something, then we also have conviction. God's voice never makes us feel shame. It never makes us feel bad or wrong. Again, it never rushes us. It's always soothing and calming. It feels like peace or joy. So you can know when you are hearing God's voice. Now, when I hear God's voice, I don't hear like a strong male voice booming in my mind. It's usually my own voice, but I can kind of tell that the words are other. They're not from me. especially when it's saying something that I don't necessarily want to do. When he's encouraging me to do something big or new. One of the ways that I hear God's voice is I try to always be in a state of grace. By going to confession often, our family goes once a month, and sometimes we go more than once a month. I pray the act of contrition every evening. I am heartily sorry for having sinned against you, and I purpose to sin no more. And I really try to believe what I'm saying. And I usually say, Lord, please forgive me for the sins I don't even know were sins. Just any of the things throughout today that I've forgotten about, that I'm not remembering to ask forgiveness for. Because I know that the more I am right with the Lord, the more clearly I hear his voice. The other thing that really helps me to hear God's voice is to read works from great spiritual writers. Thomas Aquinas, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Thomas Kempis. And I read their words. I read their kind of heavenly language for 10 minutes, not even a lot of time, for 10 minutes. And then I take out my journal and I journal with the Lord. I'll say, Lord, what do you want to tell me about this thing that I'm struggling with? And I write, at the edge of the page for my question. And then I indent for what I feel like God is telling me. And I just listen for his voice. And he tells me the most amazing things. So we're going to be talking so much more about this. I'm going to give you so many more tools. But today, I just want you to ask yourself, what if it is possible to really hear God's voice often? What if it is possible that God will tell me what to do? What if it is possible to hear God's voice? That is what I want you to ask yourself today. And then keep listening to the show because we're going to be talking about getting to know the Holy Spirit, hearing his voice, and using the wisdom of the Holy Spirit to guide the choices in our life. So I want to leave you today with this quote from Mother Teresa because it's just one of my favorites. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not yet come. We only have today. Let us begin. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Catholic Mom Mindset. To learn more about growing closer to the Holy Spirit, check out our free resources at madeforgreatness.co. Thank you so much for listening and have a blessed day.